Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniature. It is time for another of these Nightworks models out of China. So this is Hijin Kana. Showed you guys one of the other 1/48th fantasy figures that they made. Obviously we're going with a more samurai themed figure this time around. Now while they do have the scale a little bit off in comparison to a lot of other tabletop fantasy figures, it's kind of like this weird niche between, painter's scale, kind of 54mm, 75mm, and the typical 28/32mm that most gaming seems to take place in. Now, as far as I am aware, these are completely brand new, original sculpts, ideas. You've got, everybody literally listed here. I may not be able to read Chinese, but I do see names listed, so that's a nice sign. Bigger box than the previous figure, if I recall correctly. But we also have a bit more of a diorama type base included this time around. Now, I gotta say, it's nice that we have big chunks of foam to support the figure in there. The missing frame is somewhat concerning. This is a full, okay, I was like, dang, that's massive for a manual. So much like the other figure, we have the typical postcard. That's kind of interesting to see that she's got the face mask on in this one. Without. I feel like I'm an optometrist. Number one, number two. Number one, no. So, there's number two. As previously shown, we've got kind of a breakdown of how everything looks on the character. Sadly, this is in black and white. We do have a character kind of history explanation about them included as well. There is a color breakdown, which is really nice in both English and Chinese. For those of you who need that. That's actually pretty extensive directions, I gotta say. Having spent many years building various tabletop figures, that's pretty surprising to see everything included in the directions. And then they have a bunch of various QR codes as well. Curious that we have a part breakdown in the manual. Okay, so that's good to see. I was worried there, but I can see that my worry is all for naught. We do have another of the anime eyes included, and I'm pretty sure that's what these are. I haven't tried these on Hasta. That was the previous figure that I showed off. She's sitting here somewhere. And we'll get her compared to Hijin Kana when she's all done. They are plastic figures. This is way more in-depth than the previous one I built was, so that's kind of interesting. Also to see that we have some little Japanese explanations and directions for everything. I do not recall that on the prior figure. Interesting. Huh. So, honestly, that's kind of cool to see that they basically, you've got a trilingual instruction manual, but, given the context of the figure, I can totally see that being quite popular in Japan as well. And again, breakdown on all the colors and the various subsections of how you would want to do that. So, pretty cool to see. If you're experienced with things like Kingdom Death and models of that ilk, this should be somewhat familiar territory. The mask in question, I'm assuming. This is, like I said, their more samurai styled figure. I am eventually going to have to get some of their Chinese fantasy wuxia figures. Most of those, I believe, are still in the 1/24th larger scale. So I'm a little less excited to build those, but I mean, honestly, for as small and as detailed as some of these parts are, the fact that we have everything broken down really nicely, kind of step by step in the directions, is pretty cool to see, I gotta say. That's a new one for me, so kudos to Nightworks. We'll see how it turns out. You want to see it too? Sit tight. So, we got Hijin Kana all put together here, and I have to say, this was kind of a chore. Some of the contact points were in the exact same spot that the sprue is attached to the figure, which resulted in me, case in point right here, not having anything for them to attach to the base with, or in other various spots, and I had to get creative. That belt obi of hers with the big rope pieces on the back was a pain in the butt, and let me tell you, seriously royal frustrating pain. Most of the rest of the figure went together fairly decently. I tried with a nicer, much more precise plastic cement, and it didn't really want to cooperate, so we got out the trusty old testers and got the job done, let me say. Looking at the figure itself, probably, yeah, about a 40mm base might work for it. It is going to be big. The immediate thing I thought of, obviously with another of the Nightworks models here, Hasta, I gotta say, I'm going to give the edge to her being more just, well, huge, but also a little bit more gamey in terms of the pose and presentation. Obviously, this is more of a diorama type piece, and there's a lot of these type of figures that Nightworks has made in the larger scales. But immediately, I started thinking of some of the earlier painters' pieces from Kingdom Death where they weren't so big. Well, okay, maybe the Valentine Twilight Knight is a bit on the larger scale, but heck, maybe that one is too. I don't know where I have my white speaker Nico Robin whatever, the Santa one from way back when. Couldn't find her, but you get the idea at least. I think Kingdom Death figures, at least the painter scale stuff, is going to be a bit larger. I am still curious to try one of the larger Nightworks figures. I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy her as much as Hasta, just due to the complexity of lots of little pieces needing to get, you know, one at a time attached, where it kind of felt more like a modern GW figure in terms of having to fit every little thing in, whereas the more fantasy styled Hasta seemed a much more, you know, kind of typical tabletop model. Grabbing some of the somewhat more recent Kingdom Death models just to kind of get an idea of size. You can see she is a bit bigger than them. I hate to say this, just gets me realizing that I haven't touched or finished a Kingdom Death model in some time. I probably should fix that. They've had some really cool figures in the last few months, and I have not gotten around to any of it. That's on me, though. That's something I'll have to fix. I've just been super busy with family birthdays and upgrading the computer and having to do everything and all the various trials and tribulations of life. But nevertheless, we will get around to it eventually. And I gotta say, you know, when all is said and done, not a bad little figure. Definitely had the joy, if you will, of building more frustrating models than this. I would just be hesitant and very careful when cutting things off the sprue. Learn from my mistake so that you don't have to go down that route as well as I did. And I gotta say, in the end, I mean, everything seems to have kind of come together pretty decently. I'm not 100% if that's where the tail, sword, hands, everything is supposed to sit. Of note also, I didn't realize is there's just that many different face variations for her. I just went with a normal one. I am going to try using those little anime sticker eyes. This figure, now that they're in focus, had a little bit more refined features if you wanted to paint them in on one of the faces, whereas this is just kind of smooth so that you can do the eyes yourself. And I had to double check because I know I had Hasta's here. She has an eye patch. She only has one eye there. So, kind of a cool touch. I'm really curious to see how that turns out. I've never seen that with models like these, but it does seem kind of appropriate. So, we'll give that a try, hopefully, in the very near future. And if you want, I know there are quite a few of these models out there from Nightworks, and hopefully, if you're interested, maybe you'll find one that tickles your fancy as well as mine. So, with that said then, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.